as far as bringing it all the way to modern date, I don't know, like I want to talk about one deal story. I know we were talking about it earlier a little bit, want to hear that, but one of the biggest things that stand out as far as time equities, whether you read it in the book or you just are aware of Francis or you just know the properties, but 50 West and 1000M in Chicago, like there are these, I don't even know how you would best describe them, short of, incredible, right?
Staying power.
They're unbelievable properties. 50 West, if you haven't looked it up, obviously look it up, near Wall Street, and then 1000M south side of Chicago.
It's
like
1000 South Michigan Ave.
Yeah.
South Loop, Chicago, Michigan Ave.
Unbelievable architectural designs, these powerhouse. So 50 West, 64.
John, the famous German architect that passed away in the last 2 years in a terrible accident, but was friendly with our chairman. But
he designed both, right?
Yeah. And their signature designs. I think actually 1000M was his last actual design, I think.
Project, yeah.
Not corrected. But, I mean, so, listen, going back to 50 West, I'll tell you.
So 64 stories, 191
64-story, luxury high-rise,
condos.
residential, a couple blocks south of the World Trade Center on West Street.
Yep.
Beautiful building. Luxury, you wouldn't believe some of the pricing in there.
I've seen it. There's one left for sale for like 37 million or something.
To this day, as a real estate person, I will never understand New York City, the pricing, and that's someone who has lived here my whole life.
Bought and sold it too.
I just don't. It's the pricing. It's almost amazing at times what
crazy.
The pricing is. But that project actually, going back to the sort of the essence of it, it was a live-work building at the time. Before it was a live-work property that was damaged significantly in the 9/11 fires.
Yeah.
So 9/11, obviously a terrible incident for the country and Lower Manhattan, the depth of that, but physical building damage was widespread.
Yeah.
So that property really became a question mark in terms of how you could resurrect it as a live work, because the work you would have had to spend to get it where it needed to go. And so there was a series of things that happened that caused us to sort of like, what is the highest and best use for that property? Turns out it was a high-rise residential development. That deal lived 100 lives. Our director of development, Rob Singer, did an unbelievable job. I remember we were originally out looking for financing to build the tower, but it was condominium financing. And that was at a time when the market was not really favoring residential condominium.
Right.
And we were not someone known as someone that would build 64-story high-rise towers. We were known as a very capable investment company developer, but not someone that's in the high-rise space. So that property lived its own life, but we ended up getting two major institutions to back us, one that Rob came up with, one that I came up with, and we were able to build that building, and it turned out to be a phenomenal success story. That sort of led to, like the same way we might go into a new market, we should have a development business. And maybe not a development business that's pumping out a project every 6 months, but
strategic development.
I don't think we'll ever be related. I think it's strategic sites, strategic things, and so that sort of was the beginning of just the same way we would go into Germany or the Netherlands or Canada or wherever we might be going. More recently, Portugal, but that led to, we can be looking at development sites. The one in Chicago actually started through one of my relationships originally. Someone that I knew, I became friendly with, was doing a lot of business in Chicago, the Carlicks, and had a nice rapport with the father-son team. And they brought us a deal that actually we were buying something on a foreclosure. And it was, it was relatively small, but we had a high coupon on it. And fast forward, it was essentially a large land assemblage site, and we assembled property and created what is now a 74-story high-rise residential rental property And that led to, that by the way lived its own life because,
It was condos first.
Condos first, we couldn't find the
And
financing.
now 738 apartments.
Couldn't find the debt financing
Right.
because lenders at that time did not want to.
So this was 19 that the buildings?
Yeah, about that.
Okay.
Sounds about right.
So then through COVID.
I mean, we're about to, we just recently topped off the building and we're about to complete the building at the end of this year. So it was probably, I would say, 1920, of course.
So it lived its own
Drop a
life
little
through
thing
COVID.
called pandemic COVID.
Right.
Not the easiest thing to finance.
Sure.
But, and so it turned out that it was easier to get debt financing on a large rental tower.
Because it's income producing.
Income producing, and institutions are more familiar with it. You know, if you think about condo financing, the worry is that you sell half the building, the other half is sitting there fighting for it. And, what do you really own at the end? And so that's not really something that banks and primarily institutional investors can really get their heads around. Of course, there's more premium on an exit through a condominium pricing than typically what would be a residential rental build. But because cap rates had compressed so much on rental properties, we were able to sort of back into this being actually a very interesting residential rental high-rise, luxury high-rise. And we were able to get Goldman Sachs primarily to lead the way on the construction financing. And then we're left with, well, how do you go finance $150 million of equity?
Right.
So as part of the explosion of the 1031 space,
Oh, neat.
we started sort of like back and forth. There's all these discussions about, well, how could we sort of bring that product, de-risk it for them? And we ended up coming up with a ground lease structure that, I don't want to give too much secret sauce away.
It's okay. You don't have to.
But that turned out that we essentially structured more or less, a lot of the investors in a ground lease position that insulated them from risk because we had all of our equity subordinate to, call it A, B, and C tranche. A was the lender. B was the sort of grouping of 1031 exchange investors that qualify for 1031. And then, C tranche was us. And so we had a substantial amount of equity. We had guaranteed the loan. But it was also a way for us to, so we de-risked the money so that they had lower risk. But it also made the project feasible because the cost of the funds was substantially less than what some of the sort of vulturist opportunity funds might want out of a mezz position. And so it really was a true win-win, I think, for everyone. And we were able to just be, again, we were agile, we were creative. I was really proud that we were able to pull that off. Then the question is, well, can you raise the money? And it turned out that, we went out to people, we were creative on the offerings. And so now you have these two phenomenal buildings that were built in very different styles. The deal that I was going to mention was the deal down in Florida, which is a similar story. But the 1000M story I'm really proud of as one of the deals. Not only did the company have the staying power and the wherewithal and the creativity to actually design and develop one of the, I think will be the phenomenal skyline properties of a major U.S. city in recent time, but the creativity behind the capital structure was phenomenal. And it was something that I think, it's always nice when everyone can have a win, and I'm hopeful that we'll see that through and it'll be great. But we were able to raise it through essentially our 1031 exchange business. And who knew?
Yeah, it's a beautiful deal end to end from the capital stack and the development. But when does that start leasing? You're saying end of this year will be complete, so like a spring 25
Yeah, we're actually
leasing?
just started our pre-leasing. We're actually like probably by the time this
So the
podcast
marketing
goes live.
started.
Yeah, so the marketing has started. We have waiting lists and demand potential build up, but obviously we're finishing but we're, I think by May, middle of May, we're going to deliver the first 20 floors for occupancy. So we're in pre-leasing mode now, and I think we're coming out publicly in the next couple of weeks. That's going to sort of introduce the ability to lease, and so I think we're all excited to see it get leased up. It's a lot of apartments. It'll take time, but we built in absorption, and of course then the important component there will be the interest rate environment when we look to refinance at some point.
Yeah. And kind of wrapping up a little bit here, is there any other property that you wanted to highlight? I didn't want to cut you short. You guys own no shortage of amazing real estate. You own Beaver, which is where Delmonico's is. Yeah, I mean, you guys own pretty much everything that's cool here in some respect. But you had a lot of activity last year too, and then I saw a closing article a couple days ago about retail shopping center maybe in Kansas City that you guys.
Yeah, we bought that. We bought recently, which was Overland Park, which is I think a nice deal. I mean, we have a very very strong retail team. I mean, one of the advantages of this company is we have the way we're set up is we have deal teams.
Yeah.
You know, senior deal person. We have a
more junior acquisition.
Well, we have like Ami Ziff, who heads up our national retail team, and a phenomenally successful, talented professional that has built a great team. And so we own 100+ shopping centers and/or malls, strip centers, et cetera. So we've become a force in the retail space, and we've really been able to sort of start getting some efficiencies on tenants. And he's done a phenomenal job buying properties well and being able to finance them. But we have other teams here that Aaron Medeiros, who has really headed up a lot of our European investment strategy, along with one of our partners, John Schleppens, out in the Netherlands. But just to name a few, we have people that focus. He's primarily an office player for the most part, but he obviously could do anything. He's a very experienced deal manager. But we're set up where we have seasoned deal people that have people under them that are focused on certain areas. Max Pastor is one of our senior deal leaders, also the new sort of like vice president of the firm, leads a great deal team on industrial and some housing and things like that. So usually we have a team, Brad Gordon, Bobby Cohan, that are focused on student housing as of late. So we have like almost specialty teams that operate sort of in a silo in a way that they're focused on a particular niche that they've seen some expertise in, that they're, and of course they can expand beyond that and cross over, and we all collaborate together, of course. But it's led to some specialty expertise that we've, I think that's benefited us, so that's led to all these different deal strategies.